Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Champions Gauntlet, our last week before the break for PAX. My name is Justin Lutz, aka Cyberwaste, and I am joined by someone that got lost on the way to the Crucible, Matthew Hunter, aka GL Phoenix. How do you do this evening?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Justin. It's been a while since we've cast together, but I'm excited to get back into it, and we've got some really great series on tonight. 2 top-of-the-table clashes.
Yeah, both of these teams are looking at a 4-1 record at the moment, and one will be looking to add one, and sadly one will be getting one put into the loss column. Now, our opening match will be Washed and Scuffed and Paradigm Drift locking horns, and then 52 Faces and Paper Plane Revival will be going at it in our second set of the evening. And before we do begin, we'll just run you through our map pool quickly. Phoenix, if you would kindly please.
Oh god, I didn't bring it up, but just so we know where we're starting off on, it is going to be Nepal. I'll just have to quickly bring up where the rest of them are at. If you have them,
I can do that too. That's not a drama. To make things clear, it'll be the losing team that gets the power of choice. And our second map will be the Escort Discipline, which will be Watchpoint, Gibraltar, and Junkatown. And then map 3 will be Hybrid with King's Row and Eichenwald up for debate. And then for the Assault Discipline, we will have Hanamura and Volskaya. And to close, we will have Lijiang Tower. And to clarify, it will be a first to 3. So
we're used to doing a lot of series where it's like you have to play it out just for the sake of the standings, but no, this is just a straight best of 5. If we do have tied maps, there is the timebreaker over on Ilios, I do believe. And it's just
it will be. Yeah.
Whoever gets to 3 points first is going to be the winner. And as you were saying before, 4-1 for all 4 of these teams that are playing tonight, and we're going to be breaking a lot of those tiebreakers at the top end of that table, and I'm very interested to see how these two go up against each other.
It'll actually be really interesting because we are going into a bit of a prolonged break if we revisit the schedule, because as I did mention, we will be going to PAX next week, and a few members of CappingTV's casting team will be running along there as well. Myself, my very Canadian caster friend Graham Casts, and Peronius will also be there, and we'll be doing plenty of big brain stuff, and we're really looking forward to it because I've had a brief look at the schedule of what's on offer. It's going to be a full-blown 3-day fest of all things nerdy, no matter what you're into.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing how things go from that. I won't actually be at PAX, unfortunately, but that is going to be... Well, you guys can have all the fun, and I'm happy to just... Well, I've been preoccupied with another game that I won't really mention just yet, but it's just, we'll see how things go.
Did I give a subtle nod to said game in the intro? Maybe.
Well, I'll just say it's no longer on the Battle.net launcher, and that's all I'll say.
It decided to find a new world, much like the rest of the galaxies. Anywho, we should be ready momentarily. As we did mention, the first map will be Nepal, and our opening set will be between Washed and Scuffed and Paradigm Drift, and we should be seeing the ready calls from all team captains and producers momentarily, and we are about to travel into the mountains. That's exactly what will occur.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see how this one plays out. It's usually... I do quite like the fact that Control is the first map in a lot of these styles of competitions. It does get a good... both teams get a good feel for each other and how they're coming into today. And they are quite different to a lot of the other disciplines, and you will see some quite stark differences going from one to the other. But it's always nice to get a bit of a feel before you get into the nitty-gritty of these extended series.
It's essentially the opening round of a bracket if you're into fighting games. You sort of get into the feeling out phase of your opponent, as opposed to
just running through pools. Yeah.
as opposed to one person, you have to deal with 6 others, and you have 5, and yourself included in that statement. But now we are ready, and we are about to go underway. Wash and Scuffed will be in the blue, and in the red will be Paradigm Drift. And I think Husky will be one of the spearheads of the order of the day. Basically, all the tanks will be electing to go with the Sigma, because we have seen a lot of usage from him, and for very good reason.
Yeah, he just brings a lot of utility to the table, not only just with the shields, but also the displacement, and just allowing him... It's just a very good supplementary tank, and alongside the Orisa, which has been the common duo on that front line, it's really hard to push through a lot of those shields, and it gives a lot of space to the rest of the team. We'll see how this one plays out, as both teams are making their way to the point. And we'll see how this first fight goes, as Husky is going to be the first casualty of this series, as Hypella is going to be able to get the securing kill there. And we do have the Doomfist diving straight on through, and it's looking pretty good for Wash and Scuffed so far, but they do turn it around really nicely. And now with the point now active and available, it is looking pretty good for Wash and Scuffed, as they do have position on the point. But now it looks like the opposing team of Paradigm, they're making their way towards the point. They are stalling it out quite nicely, and with the reinforcements coming in, it looks like they might be able to get the fight to start going in their favor. They get a nice kill onto Pulsar. Husky coming back into the fight. Dracula takes down his opposing number, and even after all of this, it looks like Paradigm are going to be the ones to get the final securing kills in the first fight and get the first snip of the point.
And it took a lot of grinding out. That shouldn't be understated, especially when Gluten was looking close to sort of being really out of place, and Paradigm Drift almost let that slip away, and Wash and Scuff would have gotten first touch of the point. But now Paradigm Drift are on the clock, and Wash and Scuff are wasting no time, and they do have a few pieces at the ready, and the Bogger was on the ground.
Yeah, they want to get their way into the fight, utilize what they have, but so far it's just been trading back and forth for the time being. The Cutlass is doing a lot of work for the defensive side of things, as Gluten is just punching his way through that back line, and it looks like, yet again, Paradigm Drift are going to be able to come out at the end of this fight. Husky ended up falling to his own devices. We do have the Moira on the back side trying to get a bit of a sneaky backhand, does manage to drag away the rest of Paradigm, but the fight has already been won.
Yes, indeed, and wasting no time. Wash and Scuffed are already back into it. They do have a few at the ready, but two are out. That will be Bagtech and Havelo basically down and out. Lieutenant Chestnut will eliminate the supercharger. And that's basically all that Wash and Scuffed could really go for. So it was essentially just a dry run to try and force out ultimates from Paradigm Drift, but it didn't look like they bit, aside from the supercharger that was dropped by Angel.
Yeah, the supercharger did go down, but you can see they do have quite a few really strong, powerful ultimates still in the bank. We do actually have a switch. Pulsar moving over to the McCree, wanting a little bit more long range, wanting that hit scan, and also utilizing those flashbangs to deal with the Doomfist, as we do have the lift going up, and there's just a lot of ultimates being dropped left, right, and center. Pulsar's going to get the first kill onto Gluten, as they wanted to have that happen immediately, and now we'll see how this goes. Chestnut with the ultimate, with the Death Blossom, does manage to pick up one. Not able to get too much more with it, but the fight has already been won. They roll their way through, and at the end of the fight, they do manage to secure themselves the point, but it's already at 99%. They have to hold on for a long time here, Cyber.
Yes, indeed. They had to exert pretty much everything. The Gravitic Flux was used, the Deadeye from Lieutenant Chestnut, and now Wash and Scuffed will really have to put the opposition on spin cycle and try and disorient them and perhaps pull them out of line. But there are a couple of big ultimates that are on deck for the side of Paradigm Drift, and one will be claimed. That will be Pulsar getting the Death Blossom of Dracula right in his face, and Dracula has come for the souls of the damned on the side of Wash and Scuffed. And, well, that was like a brick in the washing machine, and Paradigm Drift will once again clock in and commandeer the point, and I don't think Wash and Scuff will be able to touch.
Yeah, that's a really good turnaround fight. They did end up losing the point for a little bit, but once they turn it around, they were able to secure the fight quite nicely. It did end up costing them the Doomfist at the very start, but they did draw a lot of aggression out towards that front side, allowed the Reaper to get into that backside, get that Death Blossom off. Sure, it only managed to take down the McCree, but that was one of the key figures that they really needed to deal with, and at that point, everything had been used on the side of Watch and Scuffed, and they didn't really have much left in the tank, but now we'll have to see how they come into this next round on the village. It looks like there's going to be a bit of a difference in the compositions, a bit of a shake-up on both sides, and it's usually what you kind of expect to see coming into the village.
Especially the farmer. See, a lot of verticality on the village, and it's one of the few points in the game where the Farah is as effective as she is, especially given all the rooftops that the Pharmacy can use as cover. And if Paradigm Drift aren't careful, they might just eat a ton of rockets and not a whole lot else.
Yeah, well, they managed to just run straight towards the point and managed to get a nice little setup for themselves here. They've got a great amount of walls that is going to be quite hard to deal with for the side of Washington Scuffed, as they do get a good May wall on both sides, trying to lock away certain parts of the composition. They do manage to secure themselves the point. Nicely done at the very start, as Chestnut is going to be the first one to go down with the May out of the way. They could be very comfortable playing into these close quarters styles of fights. And as long as they're pretty comfortable where they are, they don't necessarily need to worry too much about Pulsar on that Farah.
No, it's essentially made it turn into a 5 versus 6 because, as you said, that Farah is basically made a non-factor just based on positioning the point alone. And because Paradigm Drift just waltzed in and won the opening fight, that was pretty much it. And now the Sada Wash has scuffed a Plague on the back foot. But props to Pulsar, he's sticking with it and is banking on Paradigm Drift to sticking together. But keep an eye on Kiri with the Coalescence. That will be a huge factor in this upcoming fight.
Yeah, and speaking of banking, they do have the Rocket Barrage, and there it goes, it gets out, and that is a quick 3 kills for the side of Pulsar, and yeah, well, that is, well, you got to be happy when a fight turns around like that. They didn't really invest too much. I mean, they did end up using the Rocket Barrage and also the Coalescence, but if you're going to be able to quickly and cleanly secure a fight like that, you got to be happy with that.
You've got to be extremely so. And now this is where Pulsar and Hypello will be the most scary. Just looking over the spawn gate and the potential rollout for the side of Paradigm Drift, they're going to have to try and make the Fire of Pulsar a non-factor again. But Magtech with a couple of assists will be taken out. But the Blizzard and the Death Blossom will go out. There is frags going each way, but it's going out slightly in the favor of Washed and Scuffed. And Angel just got rid of. No legs.
Yeah, they're just trading back and forth at this time, as it looks like the point is still being contested, but it's looking pretty good for the side of Washington Scuff. It was alright engagement there for the side of Paradigm, but with Husky actually it was Bagtech just kind of just absorbing a lot of that Death Blossom. It did mitigate a lot of the damage. He did end up going down, but the fight ended up quite nicely for them. It allowed the reinforcements to come through. Now we have to see how the rest of, or this next push is going to come through. There's some good ultimates to work with for the side of Watchman Scuff. The Supercharger does go down. Tesla has already taken down Kire, which is a very key target to get rid of, as Husky's going to get dragged back into the line of fire, but they are already backing all the way out of this danger area. Just wait for that Supercharger to run out and try and make another push at another time.
They will have to really they're really gonna have to start to double time it because the time is running out. Now the Supercharger has gone down for Paradigm Drift, and that's a big factor. Pulsar has hit the deck and may need to have the Resurrection forced out, but it doesn't look like that will be the case. It is a very red feed, and thank you Dracula and Gluten for cleaning them out. It will be overtime. Paradigm Drift have clocked in and will start their climb again, but they had to throw everything at it, and Wash and Scuffed are in a little bit of a strange position to try and consider.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit difficult because we saw just how hard it was for them to get into the point on the once Paradigm were already very well set up. It took just a very good missile barrage from Pulsar to really break the stalemate, but they don't have that for quite some time, as Chestnut is going to be the first one to go down, making it very difficult. Here comes the Flux, puts so many people into the sky, and does a decent amount of work at the same time, as the rest of the team is following up incredibly nicely there for Paradigm, as they are in the final 10%. The fight already going very well. Hypello does manage to get the Resurrection, but dies for their trouble. And they do need to just get onto the point. They need to keep this just dragged out, trying to get some kind of reinforcements, but it's just staggering time after time. They have no one left. It looks like they're just struggling to get much of a ground, and that is going to be the end of the round. End of this first map, as Paradigm Drift is going to take the first map in this best of 5 series.
Indeed, and I noticed both the Moira and the mate getting oh so close to touching the point, but just couldn't get there. They were a couple of steps short. So, with that all transpiring, Paradigm Drift will be the first to clock in, and we move on to our next map, which will be the choice of Watch's Scuffed. We'll have a choice between Watchport Gibraltar and Junkertown, and more often than not in the recent past, we've seen a lot of Watchpoint be employed in terms of choice.
Yeah, it does seem that with the way the meta has been slowly developing since the 222 lock, that Gibraltar just has a little bit more variety in it. Whereas when we start to see Junkertown, it is a lot of the sniper style compositions with the Widow, the Hanzo, even the Ana being brought out because of those incredibly long sight lines. But we'll just have to wait and see, because we do still quite like Junkertown. It is still a very good map. It's just there has been a little bit more of a resurgence of Gibraltar. Sure, it's probably a little bit because it's either Junkertown or Gibraltar. You have to have a choice between the two, and sometimes Junkertown you don't want to send certain teams to. But it looks like that's where we're going to be going in this second map.
And be ready to see a lot of defenses or a lot of just straight runs through, because it's one of the most brutal opening points if the cart will get stuck anywhere, but especially under the second bridge and out towards the first checkpoint, because it is essentially just a flat open field for the defenders to look at, and aside from a couple of little bits of cover, there's not really all that much else.
It's an incredibly open area, which does, as I mentioned, it brings a lot of power to the snipers. But another thing that does end up popping up from time to time here on Junkertown is the good old pirate ship compositions with the Bastion, trying to get as many shields set up around them. And with how the Sigma, the Orisa are pretty much staples at this point of the meta, it just fits quite nicely into that wheelhouse. So I wouldn't be too surprised to see some of those. But as I said, I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of snipers on the other side either.
We'll see how that will shake out. We'll get our answers to those questions very shortly. We will travel to the home ground, the land so strong and free, Australia, and we will go to Junkertown. And a quick little fact, in the PTR, when this map was being developed, the little tuck shop that was in the second point that actually said takeout and niche.
Yeah, I remember this.
niche from what was formerly Good Game, and then I think it was Screenplay had advocated to get that changed, and then he got that changed. So he called them out and did the right thing.
Because it's not Australian to call it that.
Exactly. You either call it a takeaway or a tuck shop or something like that.
It's the attention to detail, you know?
Yeah, some people might think it's not a big deal, but people like us and people that live in the country would really appreciate small details like that. Anywho, Watch the Scuffed will be your defenders, and your attackers will be Paradigm Drift, who are coming in off of a win on Nepal. And are we going to see a mirror with Bastion?
I mean, it wouldn't be too out of the realm of possibility. I mean, with a lot of the shieldings going around, as we can see, the Sigma and also the Orisa, they do shield a key target very nicely, as we can see. Just they've set themselves up at a very, very forward position. And it's going to be very hard for the opposing side, for the side of Paradigm, to actually get a good position onto the cart without taking too much damage in the meantime. As we can see, a lot of damage coming in from long-range Pulsar, doing a lot of work with the Farah to make this as difficult as possible. We can see those shields getting absolutely demolished before they can get too much done, and it's very awkward for Paradigm trying to make their way to the cart, and they're just not able to get anywhere close to it.
It's extremely spread out too, because you see Lieutenant Chestnut, the Bastion, it was tucked away and now has shifted position. So just making that cross onto the cart to even touch it is proving to be quite difficult. And Dracula has gotten the better of Lieutenant Chestnut, and that is one piece of the defense off the table. And that has forced a resurrection from FZR on to Lieutenant Chestnut. But that's one in the column for Paradigm Drift. They're starting to get the cart moving. And the immortality field's gone too, so that's going from bad to worse, and Paradigm Drift have turned it from a drift into a surge, as the entire defense of Washington Scuffed will be basically just blown away by that.
Yeah, as you said, it just went from bad to worse. It was Chestnut getting caught out. It was just the shields going down. The healing was just not there at when it was needed, and at that point, it was just really hard for them to scramble on that defense. They were so far forward that because they had lost it, it was real hard to get to a safe spot. As they do try and stall them out at the very end of this first point, gets cleaned up. Pulsar in the middle of that missile barrage, and that is going to be a very clean first point. It took a little bit to get started, but once the cart got rolling, it did not look like stopping.
Definitely not. I'll tell you what, a lot of small cafes are really mad right now because that push was full of gluten, and that big blizzard basically sealed that entire recontest from Washington Scuffed and basically made it a non-factor. And Washington Scuffed might actually get stretched again. Doggerman on the wrecking ball got into engagement with the Baptiste and almost went down. Now back at full health, and that could have gone really, really wrong if they weren't careful.
Yeah, now we see a very big shift in composition from the side of Washington Scuffed. They want to get a little bit more dive heavy, and so far working out pretty nicely. They got onto the Bastion. They don't really have any good position to try and get that back up. They don't even have the mercy to do that anyway. But in the end, they do turn it around. Husky getting a good couple of kills for themselves. And the fight, even though it started out quite nicely for Washed and Scuffed, it has just fallen apart a little bit as the more durable lineup of this Paradigm Drift composition is just eking out these extended team fights just a little bit better.
Yes, and it's less of a demonstration of iron sharpening iron and more a where far sharper and more robust than you. And Ragtech in the mecha just got flat out melted and ejected. Husky and Dracula being the two-member wrecking crew, and Paradigm Drift will most assuredly get to the second point, and with a lot on the clock, about 4 minutes and 30 and some change.
Yeah, it was pretty much a situation where Dracula just sat there, held left click, and just as long as it wasn't going straight into the Reflecting Genji, you're gonna be pretty happy. And managed to get the nano boost as well, and yeah, the durability on the side of Watch and Scuff just isn't really there. They need to get those very quick engagements, and they need them to stick, get those targets down, and try and snowball the fight from there, because if they don't manage to kill that initial target, they just get ground to dust in these fights. So we'll see how they can come into this last point. As they do get the dive down, we'll see how much more, if they can actually get the kill, as Dracula just turns around and smacks two people with that tank configuration. The rest of the team is helping out as well. The Immortality Field just doing a little bit too much more work than they would have liked. And no one even goes down from the side of Paradigm Drift, so really nicely done there.
That was pretty much like clockwork. As soon as the Immortality Field goes down, tank configuration from Dracula, and then gluten with the Blizzard. I was almost going to call him Dr. Acula, because all he did was being a doctor, and all he administers it is pain. And now there's a big Bionade onto Dracula. That might have been the one chance to take him down, but that is the sound barrier. But then the EMP to counter it. And now Pulsar is getting his time to shine and showing off some steak knives. Has gotten a pair. Bagtech got one as well. The turn Chestnut will almost certainly get the parting blow to basically force this attack to finally cease. And now Wash and Scuffed can finally become a laundry and start to clean up what's happened, because it was really, really messy up until that point.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you just need that one fight to try and dig your heels in. And now that they have managed to stall out the cart, they can start to set up a bit of a defense. And this third point can be a bit of an awkward one to try and push all the way through to the end if you lose a little bit of momentum. But here comes the Flux, trying to bring someone all the way down to the ground. Pulsar gets thrown all the way from the top story, but does manage to get the kill in return onto Husky. Nicely done there for Bagtech. We'll see how the rest of this fight is going to progress. A good sleep does go down, but the Bionades from both sides are going to be restricting a lot of that healing, and the fight going very well here for the side of Paradigm Shift. It looked like it was going to be a little bit iffy, but once the rest of the team came around the corner, there was absolutely nothing stopping this Drift lineup from pushing all the way through to the end. And with over 2 minutes left on the clock, they managed to push all the way. And that's going to be an incredibly tough ask for the side of Washington Scuffed.
2 minutes and 12 for Paradigm Drift. And yeah, like you said, aside from that little trip up, it was pretty much flawless from bell to bell, from Paradigm Drift, and now it'll be up to Watch the Scuff to put out something similarly squeaky clean, and seeing if that is possible or not. And seeing for their play, I'd say it's definitely in the realm of possibility, but they just have to hope that everything sort of falls in their favor. If they choose to go to a similar setup, being the pirate ship, there are a few more. The choice of defense and attack is a little bit more broad, given the new hero and a few of the changes that have taken place.
Yeah, and one thing they really want to try and ensure that they have go their way is momentum, because that's a lot of the power in these escort missions. Is just once you get the momentum going, you can start utilizing your little bit of an advantage, get that cart moving, and then once you're the first ones to get those ultimates, then just snowball that into that first point, try and utilize that to snowball into the second point. And because they need to, for starters, they need to finish this whole map, let alone get a pretty decent time to have some time coming into the next round. So we'll have to see how they play this one out. It is going to be snipers. A little bit of a difference from what we saw in the previous round of a lot of shields.
Indeed, and a duel between Lieutenant Chestnut and Gluten. We'll see how this all transpires. Both of them have the Mercy there to assist as well. And this will definitely be a lot more grinding out. A big Bionade onto both of the healers of Paradigm Drift. That might make things a little bit awkward, but it looks like everything has been falling back. But Gluten has struck the first blow. Lieutenant Chestnut will hit the deck. That is one small piece in holding this defense, and it's looking to be quite clean until Pulsar gets the reply.
Yeah, it does get a nice kill onto Dracula in the skies. The resurrection is going to be forced out, but it is going to be forcing them back a little bit. Just a little bit of safety coming out from the side of Paradigm Drift. We do have the Wrecking Ball going all the way into the back lines, as Pulsar does manage to get a couple of kills. Nicely done here with the Hanzo, utilizing those long sight lines, getting into a good flanking position. Does get cleaned up, but the damage has already been done as they are finally getting this payload moving. We'll see how much more they can get out of it.
They might be able to, or they may not be able to make it to the end, especially with Dracula being left up in the skies to their own devices along with the Mercy and Tog. And FZR has been put into the casualty sheet, so this might leave things in a bit of an awkward state. We said the opening of this map, if you get stuck around this portion of the map as the attackers, it might get extremely awkward for you.
Yeah, and with these compositions, it is going to be very rough to try and retake the point, or try and regain a position on the cart because of all those long sightlines. Yeah, you have some shields to work with, but you can't cover all of those sightlines. We're seeing how difficult it is at the time being. Is actually we're going to get a bit of a switch from Pulsar away from the Hanzo. Did get a decent amount of work done with it, but is now moving over to the Ash. They want a little bit more presence, trying to get that Bob onto the cart, as we do have the Nanoboost going down onto Bagtech, trying to get some work done, but gets absolutely demolished before it can get too much done. Dongman is going to get some nice work on the back lines, but the Resurrection is going to completely negate that, as the fight is going very nicely in favor of Paradigm Drift. And as you mentioned, this is the situation where it can get really, I wouldn't say desperate, but it's just going to be a little bit awkward trying to push your way back into the cart.
It's gonna be a bit of a strange ask. They're gonna have to sync up a lot of these ultimates. Note Doggerman with the minefield, and he's just swept in like a Batman and has secreted the minefield as well. It has been put to bed, but did put the shielding up before he did. Doggerman just got all of Dracula's barrage on that one, and Angel, despite being fragged by Pulsar, has been brought back into the fight. So the defense is holding extremely strong for now.
Yeah, that doesn't manage to hold those sightlines and making it incredibly hard for the attack to really set up anywhere. I mean, they try to make their way onto the card, get it a little bit further so they can try and set up for their own composition, but it's just really difficult when you're having to deal with Gluten. Actually, as I say, that Chestnut just deals with that problem right away. The Resurrection, I don't believe, will be available, as it was just used, and now it gives them a little bit of extra room to try and make their way towards the card. They still have to deal with Husky, who has been a real strong nuisance on that front line, and also Dracula on that final. I have to see how the rest of this fight goes. A good sleep does go down to Dungerman. They haven't turned on him just yet. They are just going to knock him around, but it's just fighting on so many different fronts at this stage. We do have the Ash coming around the side, trying to get a good angle onto the back line, but so far it's not really working out for the side of Washed and Scuffed as they're just losing a few members here and there. Backdeck does get a couple of kills onto the squishier members. This might give them a little bit of extra room to get their way towards the cart. The sleep does go down onto the Winston on the front line. They do remove Husky, and with more kills going over to Bagtech, that's going to be 4 for him over the rest of this fight. That's a 5th for himself. That's going to open up a lot of space. They might be able to get this first checkpoint, but with how much time it took for them to get there, it's going to be a bit of a stretch to get all the way through this entire stage.
Indeed, and with Dongerman coming low, but did have the shields to assist, and Party just gotten eliminated, and Dongerman's had done the same thing onto Dracula. So we are at the first checkpoint, 2 minutes and 20 remaining, and with the pharmacy being stretched out in terms of their bringing back into the fight, and Bagtech is extremely angry at being held up and being denied his tea. He's giving his tea back in return, same with Chestnut and Gluten being the stronger ones there. We're moving into 2 minutes, but Watch and Scuff finally have found their bearings. Now ask the question, can they keep this going? They do have Bob in tow and a minefield as well.
Yeah, they really have found their momentum, but now that they're coming into this second point, we'll see how this defense is going to hold up. They don't necessarily need to all in on it defense. It's not the worst thing if they give up this second point. They'll want to try and hold it here right now as the nano boost does go down onto the Winston. The Bob is going to come out in response. The sleeping dart on to Bob, so he is not going to be able to do too much just yet, as Dracula is going to be the first one to go down in this fight. This is just trading a lot of damage back and forth. Chestnut is going to get Husky out of the way as well. It's looking pretty good for the side of Washed and Scuffed as they're utilizing longer sightlines, utilizing the doubles, or essentially the triple sniper. Ash is kind of a bit of a half sniper as they're actually making it work quite nicely, but as I say that, they turn it around, get a couple of kills for themselves. Both of the big DPS members of Washed and Scuffed are out of the way. They do have a resurrection to work with, but haven't managed to use it just yet as the defense starting to get set up yet again, making it incredibly difficult for Washed and Scuffed to get all the way through just to the second point.
And Bagtech is actually caught out extremely far ahead, and all the resources are going in onto him, and Husky and Angel have got the frames of the Doggerman and Bagtech, and Angel is just sideswiped Lieutenant Chestnut. Sorry, Widowmaker, that helmet will not save you this time. And Watch and Scuffed, they've got the 30-second warning, and they're really going to have to reconvene and recontest. But Party going down, that could be the slight window that Watch and Scuffed need.
Yeah, they went forward very far to try and put a very aggressive defense for the side of Paradigm Drift, but it could end up turning around to bite them in the arse as they have lost a couple of members. Here comes the mech explosion. Doesn't really get too much, but it does create a decent amount of space as Dracula is going to be standing on the cart, but that Tesla cannon is going to completely ignore a lot of that fancy ninja shenanigans as they are going to end up losing the fight. The second checkpoint is going to be picked up for the side of Washed and Scuffed. Gluten does manage to get the kill on the Chestnut, but we'll just have to wait and see how this last checkpoint goes. The resurrection does come through. There's only 1:20 left on the clock here, Cyber. It's going to be a bit of a tight fight coming into the rest of this round.
Yeah, there is no chance that the tieback will at least be matched, but they can at least finish the map and get a minute added onto their time and have themselves go again. And we've seen a lot of 1 minute miracle runs in the past. Maybe Watch and Scuff do have a trick up their sleeve, but that is in their future. Pulsar does have the attack visor at the ready, and there is a lot of ults that will be online in this upcoming fight. Bagtech, though, is in no such space, coming oh so low, but ends up coming back, and the Lieutenant Chestnut had got the frag on the Party, but Dragon has unsheathed the blade, has claimed one and a second. Angel is there to assist with Pulsar being zapped to death. And Lieutenant Chestnut did get reconfigured and put back into the fight. Doggerman had stopped Dracula from advancing any further, and just as quickly as Watch and Scuff did have the fight in their hands, it looks like it has been tipped away like last night's leftovers, and Doggerman is the last to go down in this fight. So now 15, moving into 10, and Watch and Scuff, they're going to have to come up with something, and fast.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of time. They don't have a lot of room to try and make a very measured approach. They just need to get there, start off this overtime. As they do manage to get onto the point, they do drop the minefield, trying to get something to start at the rest of this fight. The sleep does go down onto Dongaman. We'll see how the rest of it goes. A good punch does manage to drop him down a nice amount of health, but we'll have to see how the rest of this one goes. It is into overtime. They need to be able to stay on the point for the entirety of this fight. The punch does whip, goes straight through him. Does not manage to land with that one. Chestnut does get a good kill onto Gluten. That is going to be the tracer out of this fight. We'll see how the rest of this one ends up playing out. The good kill from Husky onto that Anna on the back line. It does mitigate a lot of the utility that hero does bring to the party. Good EMP does manage to lock out several members of this defensive side out of this fight, as they do end up winning the fight quite handily here for the side of Washington Scuffed. But they do have maybe one more defense left in the tank here for the side of Paradigm Drift. They just need to stall out the cart for just a little bit longer. See how they can get onto the point. Gluten does manage to get there, but is immediately just detonated. But it does give them a little bit of time to get back onto the point. Bagtech does get a couple of kills to his name. They do end up removing the mech as well, as all of the ultimates coming in for the side of Washington Scuffed. And this is absolutely no way that Paradigm get onto that cart, and round 2 has been completed. It's the full push, and they get a minute coming into this next round.
And they do have to attack. They do have to attack first because they have the Swallow side back, and that has adjusted the side of Paradigm Drift's time bank from 2 minutes 12 to 3 minutes 12 because the minute got added on. And now, Phoenix, that an opening attack, which is going to be the main focus here, because it's essentially one and done with this much time. Maybe 2 if you pull the plug on the opening push very early. It took Washington Scuff so much time to break the defense of Paradigm Drift, and that, I'll be honest, that didn't fill me with a whole lot of confidence. They might not get as far as they really need to be able to win this map, because they have over triple the amount of time to their name due Paradigm Drift.
Yeah, it is definitely an uphill battle here for the side of Washington Scuff, but it is possible. It is possible for them to put on a really good attack and then put up a pretty significant wall. I mean, they were able to stall out just a little bit at the start of their first defense, but once the ball got rolling, it was very hard for them to actually stop that. But yeah, as you mentioned, their first attack didn't necessarily leave me with the greatest of impressions, but we'll see how this one plays out. They are going with that dive style with the Widow from those long sightlines, but already we've got a bit of a bunker set up. We'll see how much work they can get done with it, but because the Winston just goes straight past it, they're pretty much just ignoring it for the most part. But a good kill from Gluten, goes down to the back. The resurrection does come through, but it is forcing this defense to move around. Is making it really nice for Pulsar on this Widow to just start just essentially opening up the firing gallery, as the hack does go down onto Husky. A really nice kill there, and they are able to get the first fight to go really nicely in their favor. The defense was, they were expecting a certain setup and it didn't come, and then they were scrambling.
Yeah, they had no idea what to do, and you could tell that because the entirety of Paradigm Drift's composition has gone through a quick shuffle. I don't think any of the members, aside from Angel on the Orisa, change at all. And the turn Chestnut with a big hack onto the Orisa, and Angel just gets pelted down with bullets. And this push for Washington Scuffed has gone well thus far, but the turn Chestnut going down, that might be one you want to get back.
Yeah, it's not necessarily one you want to be losing, but if the rest of the... I'll start that sentence again. As the rest of the fight is going so well, you're not too worried about losing a member here or there, as they do manage to get that first checkpoint. We'll see how much more they can get out of this. They have to stick to the cart like glue, and we're seeing some adaptations coming out from the defensive side. Paradigm Drift having to change their composition, understanding that, well, the battlefield has pretty much changed at this stage of this round, and they'll have to try and find any situation for them to stall out the car. But with ultimates now coming online for the offense, we'll see how much they can get out of this Bagtech, trying to be just the big nuisance on the backline. Is doing a great job with it, using the Primal Rage to keep themselves alive. Dracula does get a kill on Depulsar, but the resurrection comes through immediately, and the rest of the team is just pushing this payload. Really nicely done here so far with how limited amount of time they had on the clock. A good hook goes down onto the Winston. See if they can get that kill, as it's trading kills back and forth, as Dongaman does get into the action, get a nice kill onto Kire, as again, still just trading kills back and forward. But the defense might start to hold up, but the good Bionade is going to completely shut them out. Angel doing a decent amount of work with the Orisa, but there's only so much you can do when they start off pushing straight through your shield, and this defense is having a bit of a rough time here, Cyber.
And they haven't really been able to find their footing at all. That was a late frag on a party who had actually gotten hacked in the interim. And in as much time as, well, roughly as much time as What's Scuffed got to the first point, they've gotten 2, and they've had to hug the cart like white on rice at a paper plate in a snowstorm. They cannot leave this thing, or else that overtime week, it won't burn. It'll be gone in a flash.
Yeah, they have adjusted their composition to make sure that they will have someone standing on that card. And already Bagtech has been an absolute monster this round, getting onto the back line, getting rid of those supports, and making sure that the rest of the team is going to have an easier time to push through, as the whole hog is going to start coming through. It just absolutely blasts away those shields and gets them all the way out of there, and they're just putting ultimates onto the cart, making it completely inhospitable. And they do manage to stall them out after what was looking like an incredibly good push there for Washington Scuffed.
That was the one thing that could have countered that entire composition, is one with knockback. It would have either been Ash's coach gun or the whole hog. And that whole hog, as soon as it comes to you, if you've got nothing to negate it, it's going to hurt. That knockback in a situation like that, it is going to suck. Because it may not look like it, but it's essentially a wall that keeps enveloping towards you, and you just can't advance. And that is where the cart will stall. But given the amount of time, the side of Washington Scuff will be extremely happy with how that panned out. And now that's put Paradigm Drift in an awkward position to move forward with. And they might be asking themselves a couple more questions as to how they approach this. They do have the luxury of having a bit more time, though.
Yeah, they do have a lot more time to work with. They can be a little bit more cautious and measured in how they play out this round, but considering what they've been going up against so far, I'm wondering if they're reconsidering some of the snipers that we saw in their previous attack, and it looked, well, I believe, actually, no, they did go with the bunker strat on their first round, so never mind, they are going to return to it, but even just going to be throwing in the Mei there as well for a little bit more control in and around the point. We'll see how this one plays out. They're already going to be stacking up on the cart. Pulsar already getting a very quick kill onto Kate, nicely done there, as we do have the Wrecking Ball onto the cart as being a big nuisance. They do manage to lock them down with the freeze, but not able to finish them off. The healing is just a little bit too strong at the moment. They do manage to clean up Hypello, and the rest of the team is going to fall suit as they end up losing out on this first defense. Nicely done there for the offense. Once they got set up, they just completely rolled through the very squishy lineup that's coming out of them.
Yes, indeed. And just like any Gatling gun, especially one that has as much of an RPM, I saw a demonstration of this on a show called Lock and Load with Ali Ermi. Basically cut through a faux forest, and that's exactly what Dracula's doing, just cutting through the opposition. And Paradigm Drift looking for a chance to contest. Lieutenant Chestnut was around, but got an icicle right to the skull. That's not what you want. And they are looking to contest on the side of Watch the Scuffed, but it might not go all that well, especially when Dracula's on the field, with Bagtech being ejected and everybody else just being sawed right through because of Dracula and the Orisa of Angel as well.
Yeah, no, I have to give a lot of credit to Party on that specific play. Waited quite a little bit. Dracula dropped a little bit lower. Waited for that last moment to drop that immortality field, and once that was down, Dracula was free to just keep on hitting. The trust between those two, you have to admire the trust there to not kind of bail out of that situation, just trusting that you are going to get that immortality field. As here comes the engagement, does get stalled out of it. It's a great engagement there with the EMP, hits everyone. That is going to shut out every little bit of healing, every little bit of shielding, I should say, as the rest of the team is going to start falling down. Actually, as I say that, they aren't going to be able to turn it around. They weren't able to get the kills in the time that the EMP was out. The supercharger does come down. The rest of the team is doing a very good job of just rolling through the rest of the team, and I don't know how that actually worked. They got the EMP onto 6 members and they weren't able to clean them up.
There was a bit of a miscue, or a bit of miscommunication in amongst the members of Watch the Scuffed. 6 EMP, you usually expect either a team wipe or an extremely weakened attack, but that did not end up happening. But we might see one take place with the Gravitic Flux going out from Husky, but looking like it's just basically business as usual for the side of Paradigm Drift, and now just trying to lead top of the cart. Pulsar seems to be the only person fragging on the side of Washed and Scuffed, and in this type of composition, going into it, it's not a good look now, and we are running low on time. Washed and Scuffed can stabilize and end up winning the map, and it's going to take basically a perfect counter-attack from what the side of Paradigm Drift are offering.
Yeah, we had the Sombra on that back line trying to get a good angle, but it's just not able to find it just yet. Here comes the tank formation. They just need to keep them away from this cart for as long as they can. Already, Hypella is going to be the first one to go out of the fight. Directly gets taken out in response. Here comes the mech explosion. Doesn't get anyone, as the Blizzard is doing a good job of controlling every little bit of space, as they do get hit with a Bionade, but the rest of the team is already gone on that defense. Really nicely done here for the side of Paradigm Drift. It was a little bit iffy there at the start of that fight with the bashing going down very early, but the rest of the team had enough ultimates to work with. They cleaned their way through the rest of that fight and go to a 2-0 lead in this best of 5 series.
And it did look, as you said, it did look a little bit hairy in the opening stanza when it got held up at the second point, but once Paradigm Drift got going, basically bookending that overtime, it was basically night and day between both teams, and Paradigm Drift will be the victors of that one. They're up 2-0, and now it'll be the start of the run, you would hope, for Washed and Scuffed. They might have to upgrade their washing machine and make it as robust and scratch resistant as possible moving forward as we move into our third map of the set, which is a choice between Kings Row and Eichenwald. And well,
so you mean Kings Row?
last time my co-caster did that, we ended up going to Eichenwald. And no, it's not going to be such things this time. We will be going to...
you only see, in the choice between those two, you see Eichenwald like maybe once in a blue moon.
Maybe, true. But it's... Kings Row is like the map that you think of when you think of Overwatch. Like you have, say, DOS 2 and Counter-Strike, or like Nuketown or Shipment in in those titles, or goodness forbid, 2-4 or Dust Bowl, anything like that. Yeah, it's
one of those very one of the OG maps. We'll just say that much. It's one of those maps that it's been done to death, but with the changes to the meta with the 2-2-2 lock, it's revitalized it, so to speak, and I'm very excited to see how this one plays out. There have been, well, from what I've seen from previous weeks, there was a decent amount of like wall compositions utilizing the Sigma, utilizing the Orisa, and even throwing in the Symmetra from time to time. So I'm interested to see what these two teams are going to throw at it.
Indeed, and we do have our battleground confirmed. As we said, it will be Kings Row. We'll take a brief break, and we shall return with our third map of the set between Washed and Scuffed and Paradigm Drift. Thank you for your company, everybody. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Gauntlet. We're moving into our third map, which is Kings Row, and Paradigm Drift will be drifting and coasting, hopefully into a win here if they win out on King's Row. And me and my cohort will be bringing you through the action. I'm Justin Lutz, aka Cyberwaste. I'm joined by Matthew Hunter, aka GL Phoenix. And we're going to El Clasico for Overwatch, so we're going to King's Row.
Yeah, absolutely. It is one of those classic staples of the game, and I'm very excited to see how these two teams are going to come at each other on this map. I mean, we've seen a little bit of adaptations throughout the rest, or throughout the series so far, changes in compositions. We've seen a lot of well, I guess what we come to expect is kind of the standard with the Sigma and the Orisa, with also things like Doomfist and the Reaper, but also changes to more dive style compositions, and even some of the sniper styles, especially on the map of Junket Town. But yeah, I'm interested to see what is going to be coming through here on King's Row, as the shields are still probably going to be a bit of a feature. And just what we're seeing so far, it is definitely a bit of a throwback. The good old Reinhardt Zarya.
And as a fan of Zarya for a long time, it makes me very, very happy to see a Zarya on the field who has fallen way out of favor as of late. But perhaps to make things a little bit more interesting for the people at home, we're seeing a little bit of a throwback composition, and I am all for that. I almost said goats. The gates are going to open, and we are underway in our third map, and Gluten's already going up into the skyline and trying to claim some heads. Nothing thus far, but definitely putting the opposition on notice.
Yeah, and they do coming in for this first fight as the Bionade does go down on to Party. Stepped a little bit too far forward, tried to get that engagement play using the boop to try and displace some of the defense, but ended up paying for it. Already nicely done here for this first defense for the side of Washed and Scuffed, but let's see how much more they can get out of this, as they are going to be able to reinforce a little bit quicker on the offensive side of things. So if they can get a fight before the rest of the defense is able to set up, they can maybe get some good position for themselves.
Perhaps the Bagtech is at full charge and is extremely scary when they are at full charge. Pulsar had eliminated Party, who you big upped in the opening. Big charge from Angel, didn't really go to all that much. That is the nano boost onto Dongman. Is big, scary, a giant blue light bulb, a big B for German boy, and that'll essentially quash the attack of Paradigm Drift, and they'll have to go back to the drawing board and try again. And we've seen a change already. A Doomfist has entered the fray.
Yeah, it looks like they are going to have to try and shake things up when it comes to the compositions. They want to be able to get onto that backline, try and clean them up, as the engagement is going to come through as a good amount of damage, and even a nice grab. It's been a while since I've had to say that one in a while, as the fight is starting quite nicely for the offense, getting a couple of kills for themselves, but here comes the Blade, gets punched right in the face, but is not going to stop him from slicing and dicing his way through, but he's not going to get too many kills with it. But it does do a decent amount of damage. It's not going to be enough. The rest of the team is going to end up falling, as it looks like Paradigm Drift finally able to get this first checkpoint. It took a couple of pushes, but they were able to get there in the end.
Yeah, they're doing whatever it takes to win. They wanted to try the throwback, didn't quite get there, so we've seen a bit of a switch up there. And Gluten, as the Tracer, just trying to dart ahead and players recon and just be a general nuisance, and Lieutenant Chestnut just cracked Party straight up, and the Graviton surge onto the members of Paradigm Drift will force them to drift in the other direction. They're gonna have to go back downstream and try again.
Yeah, they stepped forward a little bit too far. Party yet again trying to get up high and trying to get into a position to displace the defense, but ends up getting caught out for their troubles. To see how that's going to change the way they approach some of these engagements or some of these situations coming into the rest of this round, as Party yet again cleaned up at the start of this fight. They can't keep having this Lucio out of the fight before anything can really happen. It's really hamstringing them in these fights.
Indeed, and you don't really want to be hamstrung, especially at this particular junction where the payload is located. It's right underneath the arch, and it's going to be extremely awkward for the attackers of Paradigm Drift to properly get it amongst it, but this could be the ticket in. Dracula uses the Meteor Strike, but got slept, stunned, and wiped out. But in the interim, that might have been just a red herring. Paradigm Drift just came up from behind and sideswipe the opposition and has perfect control of their vehicle of choice, and that being the payload.
Yeah, there's a lot of attention put onto both of the Reinhardts. Dongerman did end up throwing out the Shadow, got blocked, and then both of the Reinhardts end up getting a nano boost, charging into each other, but in the end, the offensive side of Paradigm Drift were able to get the better end of that, as you mentioned, with the Doomfist getting cleaned up. It did end up drawing a lot of attention, but a good graviton onto so many members, but with the defensive sound barrier, it is going to keep them alive. They do end up drawing back a little bit. A good interruption there from Dracula, as they are going to be able to block away that Dead Eye, but already Angel is going to be the first one to go down. This might force back the offense just a little bit. They can't really stand around on the point when they have lost their big, beefy front line. They're gonna try. Actually, they do manage to pick off 2 members. They do end up losing party yet again. Bagtech, even though he's changed over from that Winston over to the Zaya, is still picking up where they left off, getting a couple kills themselves, but the offense really starting to tear this composition apart as they clean them up, and looks like they are going to be able to get the second checkpoint.
But they not only tore it apart, they burned a laser through it and smashed the rest of it with a giant hammer. But Gluten going down on the Tracer, maybe just way too far ahead, and perhaps just caught out, and Lieutenant Chestnut just got the avenging frag. Pulsar with the pulse bomb might be a big deal, but it has to be well coordinated, and they do have all the pieces at the ready, and that Earth Shadow just got blocked, and we're seeing a bit of a throwback to the Big Bang, it would seem like, but we have it called the Space Jam instead, with Dracula getting a pair, and this attack is looking to roll on unless the defense could have something to say. Pulsar's laying down a lot of damage and getting Lieutenant Chestnut to get the cleanup for the rest of them. That is going to force the attackers to actually retreat, and it's in a good space for the defenders to just find their bearings again.
Yeah, it is going to be a little bit awkward for them to try and push their way back towards the point. They want to get a good engagement, try and find some good angles, but with Pulsar set up, it is going to be a bit difficult. We do have the Doomfist trying to come around, but the Earth Shadow gets cut down to size as they're trying to make their way on to Pulsar. They do manage to clean up that bash, and a really good kill to start this one off. Here comes the sound barrier to get them nice and safe, and the return sound barrier as well. The Earth Shadow comes through again. The shield was not in position. They don't manage to get too many more kills out of it. It's actually Bagtech does manage to step forward, while Chestnut did clean up one with the Dead Eye, and the return fire with Gluten managed to take down Hypello, and they do push everyone off the payload. They do manage to open up some space for themselves, and Paradigm Drift do manage to get the full push with 1 minute and 45 seconds left on the clock.
And in nearly every other realm, that is a very passable time, especially given it had a couple of hiccups in the Streets phase, but they ended up pulling it out really in a really tidy and timely fashion in the end, and that's put the side of Watch the Scuffed into a bit of a predicament. They will have it's very similar to Junkatown. They will have to finish it out if they want to keep going, but they have to have time to their name. If they don't and they finish out, the best they'll hope for is a draw, and that's when we'll head to Ilios. And based from the control map that we had earlier in the set, that's looking like an extremely strong bet for the side of Paradigm Drift.
Yeah, and it looks like both teams are going to agree to the Rhine Zaya, or at least not the, I guess, maligned Sigma Orisa that we have come to know and maybe not so much love.
I like it because it's sort of brought out the
I like it because it's like interesting to look at.
Yeah, no, that's essentially why everybody else is a fan of it, is because he's such an interesting character, and lots of people are very fascinated with his appendages for some reason. I've never understood it.
No comment.
Either way, I saw him in a Yankees hat and a pair of Timbs, and I thought that was hilarious. Either way, it'll be Watched and Scuffed on the clock, and we'll see how they do in terms of matching the time that was set by Paradigm Drift. Nearly did a Freudian slip of their other org, but saved that in the end. But Bagtech the first to go down. That's not how you want to start things, but we're going evenly thus far. But that Winston loss might be quite crucial.
Yeah, we had both of the both the Reinhardts just like dashed away all the way into the streets. It was a bit of an awkward engagement coming in from Washington Scuffed, but because of how all over the place it was, they did give them the time and space to just pick apart member by member, and it looks like Paradigm Drift are going to end up falling apart on this first point. As yeah, that was pretty much a one and done there on that first attack.
Yes, and looking to be fully healed up, and look at Donga Man actually getting into a trade charge. Both of them hitting the deck, and wow, we used to loathe it, but now we love to see it. The Dragon Strike from Dracula will claim a couple of the couple. Let's try Bello and rail down a couple, and just try to buy more space now for Washington Scuffed is the aim of the game, and they've done an adequate job of that thus far. If they can skip the arch entirely, that'll put Washington Scuffed in a strong position. And perhaps looking at the state of the defenders of Paradigm Drift, we might not even get to fight the street space proper. We might only get one on the outside of the foundry because nobody's in position.
Yeah, and also the streets can be a little bit awkward to defend once you get past that arch. As you mentioned, if you can hold them there, you're in a pretty good position. But once we get later and later into the streets, it can be a little bit of an issue as they try and find some good angles as Earthshines come out from both sides, but the kills are falling in favor of Paradigm Drift. They do end up killing Chestnut before the Dead Eye was able to complete. Dongaman does manage to get a couple of kills in response, but the fight was already lost. And yeah, nicely done there for Paradigm Drift. Managing to stall out the car for just a little bit as the Winston does go diving forward very, very deeply. Does end up popping the Primal Rage and gets a good kill onto Kere. Gets the Zenyatta out of the fight. They didn't end up using the Transcendence in time, so that is going to be a bit of an issue for them. They can't really hold on here as they started to lose members, and it looks like the offense coming back with a return swing might be able to get the second checkpoint, but here comes the ultimates. They are going to just start rolling their way through. Here comes a charge from Donga Man. He goes into the drink, and alright, it's just trailing back and forth. It's like a clean team win to another clean team win on the next fight. In the other direction, it's just back and forth here, Cyber.
But here's the kicker for Paradigm Drift. Look at where the cart is located. The second checkpoint did not tick over for Washington Scuffed, so that is a strong advantage for Paradigm Drift. Not out of the realm of possibility to be broken, that must be said. And Washington Scuffed decided to be in a Death Squad formation, keeping an eye on Pulsar and how he uses his ultimate. He does have the Dragon Blade at the ready, and as soon as this engagement takes place, he might go, but Bagtech just got put to bed, and the party had eliminated Dogger Man, and with both the tanks out of the fray, Washington Scuffed might have to basically cancel the cycle and try another setting.
Yeah, I think they might be waiting for the Nanobrews to try and pair with that Dragon Blade, but they're not going to be able to get that for a little bit now that FZR has been cleaned up by Dracula, and that's going to stall out this offense just a little bit more. It was a little bit scrappy for them to hold on throughout the middle part of this stage, but now that they've been able to set up, they're able to...
Pulsar.
Ooh, that's you hate to see it.
That's awful. He got nailed right in the face with the Sonic Arrow, and that's going to leave things in a really bad spot with Bagtech and Dogger Man going down too. This is starting to shuffle all out of order for Washington Scuffed, and well,
it's just trailing in one by one and getting killed one by one, and is delaying this inevitable push that they need to make. They're just not really consolidating their efforts, and now we've got pretty much a full bank here of ultimates for the side of Paradigm Drift.
And that could end up being a really bad problem to contend with, and with Hypello going down, one of the core parts of the composition and being late to the party again. This is just going from bad to worse. And the ults to look out for, though, we said the combo earlier, Pulsar and FZR do have the Nanoboost and Dragon Blade pair on deck, and there it goes. Pulsar's at the ready and wanting to cut right through it. Party's a good get, but that is all he'll be able to do. We got railed down by the attack visor of Gluten, and Hypello did too, and I hope you're not allergic, because that was a rather beefy serving there. And now, Washington Scuffed, they're running out of ideas, and there is a lot of tea in the streets of Kings Row, as we move into sub 1 minute.
What year is it right now? Because we saw a Nanoblade into a Transcendence into a Nano boosted visor. It's like, what? What year is it that we're seeing in this?
We're going back to release week, isn't it? We might go back to release week one of these days. We're seeing a trade between the tanks though. With Husky going down, that is a big deal, and the minefield going out from Dogger Man, that might be the thing to turn the tide. Kiri did just bowled right into a mine, and despite the debuff and the buff on the Angel, and it's looking to be a fight win finally, but a little bit of an exchange of pleasantries until Angel gets bowled over by Dogger Man. I'm sorry, Reinhardt, you struck out. You have to go back to the dugout. Sorry, buddy. And we might see
it did stall out very nicely for them. So, as comical as it was, it much like what we do commonly see, or we did commonly see with the Divas stalling out, as they do manage to make it as awkward as possible for the defense to try and make their way towards the point, as in comes a Coalescence is a bit premature, it seems, as the offense is trying to make their way, well, trying to keep this payload moving. They have a minute 10 left on the clock. They need to be able to get all the way through, but that's not going to be very advantageous. If they end up losing people like this, they do end up trading back onto Gluten, but yeah, it's just trading kills back and forth, and the defense are pretty happy at this stage to keep up with this. They do have some good ultimates to work with coming into this next fight, and with 50 seconds left to go, the offense needs to find a very strong push to start getting some momentum in their favor.
And it's not looking good thus far, especially with the position where the card is. It's right at the entrance of the foundry, and Dogger Man going down. Only Angel was the defender to be put onto the casualty sheet, and that's, well, at this point it could be considered crew expendable, and Angel's back on the field. Kiri going down could be a bit of a start of the domino effect though.
Yeah, here comes, oh, well, we've seen this one in the years prior as a in comes the grab, in comes the dragon, in comes the kills, and that could very well just lock it out here and there. And it could just be a 3-0 in favor of Paradigm Drift if Watch and Scuffed don't have anything to say about it. Here comes the minefield. They need this to work. Kiri comes in with the Transcendence just to bowl all the way through those.
Oh my god, Dracula.
He's a minesweeper right now, as Dracula is going to be able to light up this kill feed. They're getting all the good angles. Pulsar does manage to get onto the backside, but there was absolutely nothing he could get done. They are trying to stick onto the point to keep this as alive for as long as possible, but it's not going to happen, as Paradigm Drift just absolutely dominate that final fight and secure the 3-0.
I did appreciate the throwbacks though during that set on King's Row. That does need to be said. Lots of love and GG's exchange in the chat. That'll be 5-1 for Paradigm Drift as they sweep out their opposition in Watch and Scuffed, who go to 4-2. But all in all, I'd say that was an extremely strong performance from Paradigm Drift from bell to bell. And in the next couple of weeks, when we do come back for the break for PAX, it's going to be a really interesting fight to the finish and seeing where they land.
Yeah, because they are, well, all four of the teams that we'll see tonight are in contention for some of those top spots. And with that win going over to Paradigm Drift, they are definitely in with a shot to take the top money. But yeah, it was well played from both sides. Watch and Scuff, they had some moments where they really started to shine, but Paradigm Drift just seemed a little bit too strong in the end.
Yeah, and that might be a thing to look out for in the near future. But now we shall be going on to a brief hiatus, but we will have a match at 8:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time. We won't be saying Standard Time for much longer. That's going to feel weird. But we have 52 Faces and Paper Plane Esports Revival. Say yeah. And they will be on deck at 8:30, but we shall be taking an intermission. Go get yourself some food, some beverages, get yourself scrubbed up, looking nice, enjoy the show, and we shall return very soon. You're watching the Gauntlet, brought to you by AOE Sports and CappingTV. I've been Subways. I'm joined by GL Phoenix, and from the side of the thing, a bonus doggo. We shall return very soon.